It is a Tuesday morning, roughly 8:30. The coffee maker is hissing, the neighborhood is perfectly quiet, and the absolute biggest financial weight of your adult life is completely gone. Last month, you sent the final mortgage payment to the bank. You had the celebratory dinner. You officially own every brick, every shingle, and every blade of grass. You have reached the ultimate American retirement milestone. But as you sit at the kitchen table, looking across at your spouse, eating breakfast in front of the morning news, a strange, uncomfortable thought creeps in. You have everything you worked for, yet you both feel a quiet, nagging sense of, what exactly are we waiting for? The mortgage disappeared, but the waiting did not. It feels ungrateful to even say it out loud. You are financially safe. You do not have to commute in the rain anymore, but the silence of the house is suddenly very loud. Today we are looking at why crossing the financial finish line often leads to an emotional cliff. We are going to walk through the hidden costs of losing your workday structure, why your house is suddenly feeling more like a job than a sanctuary, and a 4-part framework to redesign the life that happens inside those paid-off walls. I am Helen. Please remember this is an educational conversation, not individualized financial, medical, or relationship advice. If you are feeling a little lost in your own living room right now, you are not failing at retirement. In fact, that empty feeling is the most normal, predictable, and solvable part of the transition, especially once we look at the exact things your mortgage and your career used to hide. For 40 years, your life was built on an invisible scaffolding. The alarm clock dictated the morning. The rush hour commute dictated the podcast you listened to. Staff meetings, client calls, and Friday deadlines chopped the week into manageable, predictable blocks. You never had to figure out what a Wednesday meant because Wednesday simply meant being at the office. When you finally retire, you do not just lose a paycheck. You lose that entire structural support system. A paid-off house removes a significant financial bill, but it does absolutely nothing to generate a new daily schedule. Without that external pressure, 40 to 50 hours of sudden free time can feel less like a hard-earned luxury and more like a vast, empty void. It is incredibly common to spend the first 6 months treating retirement like one glorious, extended holiday weekend. You sleep in without guilt. You finally tackle organizing the garage. You catch up on the books you bought 3 years ago. You might even watch a little too much daytime television. But eventually, the garage is perfectly clean. The novelty wears off, and waking up with absolutely nothing required of you stops feeling like ultimate freedom and starts feeling a lot like irrelevance. Then there is the emotional cost that your financial planner probably never bothered to put on a retirement projection spreadsheet. When you were working, you were the go-to person for something. Maybe you were the primary problem solver, the senior mentor, the one who knew the complicated history of every account, or simply the one who kept the break room sane. You had a daily identity heavily tied to your competence and your usefulness. That identity does not magically transfer to civilian life. Nobody at the local hardware store parking lot cares that you used to manage a regional team of 50 people. They just want to know if you are moving forward in the checkout line. We spend decades diligently saving money for retirement, but we rarely save up emotional capital. We forget to cultivate hobbies that are not just about unwinding from workplace stress. We forget to build a social circle that is not entirely based on proximity to our coworkers. When the career abruptly ends, the sudden lack of professional status and a built-in daily community can leave a surprisingly deep hollow that a healthy bank account simply cannot fill. You expected a victory lap, but instead, you are grieving the loss of being needed. And this brings us right to the house itself. You own it free and clear. It is your fortress, your ultimate safe space. But let us be completely honest about what a paid-off house actually is. Yes, it is a tremendous asset on paper, but it is also a living, breathing, deteriorating responsibility. Just because the mortgage lender no longer owns a piece of it does not mean it is entirely free. You still have local property taxes that seem to creep up relentlessly every single year. You open the mail in November and realize the township wants another $300. You still have homeowners insurance premiums, which in many parts of the country have become a major, unpredictable headache. You have the roof that will inevitably need replacing, the central air system making that strange rattling noise, and the landscaping that demands constant weekend attention. The house was meant to anchor you, but it can also root you a little too deeply. Sometimes the routine maintenance of the property slowly becomes your default retirement hobby. You spend your days managing the lawn, organizing the attic again, and waiting around for the plumber to show up between noon and 4. The home was supposed to be the secure foundation of your freedom. But if you are not careful, preserving and protecting the house becomes your entire new job. It can keep you stuck in a neighborhood where your kids have long since moved away, paying high utility bills to heat empty bedrooms, simply because the thought of moving or downsizing feels too exhausting to tackle. Now, let us talk about the person sitting across from you at that quiet kitchen table. There is an old retirement joke that rings painfully true for thousands of couples. I married you for better or for worse, but I did not marry you for lunch. When both partners are suddenly home all day, every day, the household dynamic fundamentally shifts. For years, you both had separate domains. You had different experiences and different stories to tell each other at the end of the day. Now, your separate domains have collapsed into the exact same square footage. You are suddenly acutely aware of how loudly your spouse chews their morning toast, or their baffling method for loading the dishwasher. You might find yourself quietly resenting the fact that they are sitting in the living room while you are trying to read, simply because you are used to having the house to yourself on a Tuesday afternoon. More importantly, you might slowly realize you have completely different paces for this season of life. One of you might want to buy a camper, join 3 clubs, and fill the calendar with activity. The other might just want to sit on the back porch, read a mystery novel, and enjoy the profound quiet. A paid-off mortgage document does not negotiate these personal boundaries for you. You have to actively learn how to be together without being on top of each other. You have to give each other permission to have entirely separate lives, separate friends, and separate interests, all while happily sharing the same roof. It takes real communication to realize that taking a solo day trip does not mean you do not love your spouse. It just means you need a minute to yourself. We also have to address the very real collision of time, health, and your daily budget. You finally have all the time in the world to do whatever you want. But doing engaging things out in the world usually requires opening your wallet. When you were working full-time, you were honestly too busy to spend money 5 days a week. In retirement, every single day has the potential to be a Saturday, and Saturdays are expensive days. You want to go out to a nice lunch on a Tuesday? Take a spontaneous day trip on a Thursday, or finally take up a hobby like golf or woodworking. This reality changes the household budget in ways you might not have fully anticipated when you were just running the basic retirement calculators. And hovering over all of this daily activity is the unspoken timeline of your physical health. Some planners describe retirement as go-go, slow-go, and no-go years, although the timing is different for every person. Right now, in your early retirement, you likely have the energy and the mobility. The greatest danger is waiting for the absolute perfect moment to use your hard-earned freedom. It is treating your retirement portfolio like a fragile museum exhibit that you are too afraid to touch. The money was diligently saved to be deployed for your life, not just to generate a comforting high score on a monthly brokerage statement. If you wait until you feel completely ready to start traveling or learning a new skill, you might find that your knees are no longer interested in the adventure. So, how do we fix the empty feeling? We stop expecting the money and the house to do the heavy lifting of living. We have to actively build a new life framework out of 4 distinct pillars: money, time, people, and purpose. You may have solved one major part of the money problem, but retirement security is bigger than a paid-off mortgage. You may have reduced one major expense and created more room in your monthly budget. Now you need to deliberately structure the time. This does not mean reverting to a rigid corporate schedule, but it does mean having a compelling reason to get dressed and put your shoes on before noon on a Tuesday. It means creating anchor events in your week. Maybe Monday morning is for a long walk in the local park, and Thursday afternoon is reserved for your woodworking project. Next is people. You need to intentionally cultivate genuine friendships outside of your marriage. You need younger friends who keep you sharp, older friends who offer perspective, and people who share your current interests, not just nostalgia for your past career. If your entire social circle revolves around the people you used to complain about the boss with, those relationships will eventually fade. And finally, purpose. Purpose does not have to mean saving the world or starting a charity. Purpose is simply being useful to someone or something outside of yourself. It can be volunteering at the local library, teaching a grandchild how to fish, tending a community garden, or even working a low-stress part-time job a few days a week, simply because it gets you out of the house and interacting with the public. It is the simple act of knowing that if you do not show up, someone will genuinely notice your absence. The goal of all those decades of saving and investing was never to simply cross a financial finish line and just stop moving. A truly good later life is not defined by the absence of work, the absence of a mortgage, or the absence of stress. It is defined by the freedom to finally choose what is actually worth doing and deciding who is worth doing it with. Your paid-off house is a beautiful, hard-won accomplishment. It is a safe harbor in an unpredictable world. But remember that a harbor is just a secure place to dock the boat. It is not the ultimate destination. This week, I want you to look at that 4-part framework: money, time, people, and purpose. Choose just one of the 3 non-money pillars that feels a little thin right now, and make one small concrete commitment to strengthen it. Send a text message to an old friend to schedule a coffee, or look up one single volunteer shift in your town. Just establish one small anchor for your week. What is one unexpected way you have found a sense of purpose or routine since leaving your primary career? Let me know in the comments, because your specific experience often helps someone else who is quietly reading and looking for ideas. And if you found this conversation helpful, please hit the subscribe button. We are here every week talking about how to navigate the money and the mindset to make the second half of life the best part.